It's great to be presenting to everybody who's watching. We're very proud of the Clinical Research Unit and happy to be here. My name is Tamara Kemkin-Maring. I am the clinical nurse specialist on the CRU currently. I have 27 years experience in clinical research. I started out as an RN study coordinator and have been a bedside direct care nurse. I have worked as a protocol team lead on the CRU, and that brings me to my current position as the clinical nurse specialist on the clinical research unit.
I'm Tammy Kiger. I am currently the nurse manager on the clinical research unit. I have been with UW Health for 25 years, been in clinical research for 22 years. I started my clinical research journey on the CRU as a bedside nurse and was here for 10 years, went into informatics for about 8 years, integrating research into the electronic medical record. And now I've been back as the nurse manager here for the last 4 years. So yes, welcome. So we're here today to talk about the Clinical Research Unit, or CRU, and who we are and what we do. Here's our agenda. So we're going to provide an overview of the unit, including some stats. Talk about the benefit of conducting studies on the CRU, the value of the clinical research nurse, research protocol implementation on CRU. I'd like to talk a little bit about UW Health ECGs and some resources. So first, just a little bit about our history, because for those of you who have been around for a while, we have changed names a number of times. We were originally the General Clinical Research Center, or GCRC, and we were established in 1987, funded by an NIH grant. The GCRC was designed to provide principal investigators with the resources and conditions necessary to conduct clinical research in an effective and efficient manner. Over the years, like I said, we changed names a few times. We were a GCRC from 1987 until 2007. In September of 2007, the NIH roadmap for medical research developed the Clinical and Translational Research Award, or CTSA program, to create an infrastructure umbrella that then would enfold the current GCRCs. And those individual programs ceased to exist with their funding rolled into the new Clinical and Translational Science Award. Thankfully, UW-Madison was awarded one of those coveted CTSA awards. And that's when the Institute for Clinical and Translational Research, or ICTR, was formed, and when the GCRC became the CTRC, which is the Clinical and Translational Research Corps. I don't know exactly why, but in 2011, our name changed to the Clinical Research Unit, which, if nothing else, is much easier to say. Here is our CRU leadership team. Many of you know Dr. Nazia Safdar and Betsy Nugent. But for those who are less familiar, Dr. Safdar is the director of ICTR Research Networks and the Associate Dean for Clinical Trials. And Betsy is the Chief Clinical Research Officer for UW Health. We have a dotted line to both of them as they provide strategic oversight for our CRU. In the middle there, Dr. Mark Moss is our Medical Director, and Dr. Christine Sarugi is our Assistant Medical Director. They chair our Protocol Implementation Review Committee. And for each study requesting CRU support, they review the patient population and study activities to confirm they're appropriate for the level of care provided on the CRU and study team expertise. They provide additional oversight and guidance for special considerations or unique information related to the protocol that may impact our visits, patient or staff safety. And they serve as a liaison as needed to help address unique concerns with study PIs and providers. Mark is also our research subject advocate, and he reviews each study requesting CRU support for safety as well. He works with the PI and study coordinators in addition to the CRU nurses to ensure research is conducted in compliance with IRB and CRU approvals. And he performs rounds on our participants to evaluate their knowledge of the study and the study's compliance. And here's our full team. Let's see, on the far left is our protocol team. We have 3 RN clinical research specialists and 1 protocol team lead. Their primary role is to collaborate with the interdisciplinary research team to implement and operationalize studies on the CRU. And they also develop our CRU study-specific documents, which Tam will get into in a little bit. Many of you know Danielle Gale. She's in the lower left corner. She's been with us almost since the beginning when we were a GCRC. She is our protocol manager. She manages our study protocol intake, awards, tracks our census and usage of the unit, fiscal, and also completes the ancillary service review for studies requesting our support. We have one care team leader on the top of the second column, who not only provides care for our participants, but also coordinates scheduling of participant visits, adjusts staffing to meet census needs, and verifies we have what we need for upcoming visits, amongst other things. We are proud to say we have an all-RN staff in patient care with 15 bedside RNs in total. Their primary role is, of course, to provide care for participants and carry out the study activities required of the CRU. All of our nurses receive a research-specific unit orientation. They're all CPR and ACLS certified, chemo certified, and they all complete human subjects and GCP training. I don't want to forget about the rest of our team here. We do have a CRU assistant, also known as a health unit coordinator or HUC. She works closely with our care team leader to schedule participants. She's the face of the unit when they come up here. She checks them in when they arrive, and is setting up charts, because yes, we use paper charts for upcoming visits, in addition to HealthLink, but we'll get into that in a bit. We do have 2 lab specialists who cover the lab, and their primary role is to process samples, manage the kit setup, and they only work day shift hours, Monday through Friday, so all of our nurses are cross-trained in the lab. We do have a part-time clinical research dietitian. It's a limited resource that we have available to study teams to support their protocols. Primarily, this has been in the form of creating a specific menu for the visit when it's required. And then last but not least, we do have a clinical operations assistant who provides the behind-the-scenes support for myself and the staff. Here's a few pictures of our unit if you've never seen it before. We are a dedicated clinical research unit. We're located on D66 at University Hospital. We're sandwiched in between other inpatient units. And seeing as we're in the footprint of the hospital provides additional oversight and support for us. So we are required to follow all applicable hospital policies and procedures, including Joint Commission and CMS regulations. And we have access to the same support services, which is a huge benefit, including their emergency response teams, such as a code team, rapid response, and medical response. We do have a crash cart on the unit as well. We have 15 private rooms with beds and 5 treatment bays, which are chairs. 2 of our rooms are ADA accessible, 4 are hardwired for hemodynamic monitoring, though we can do cardiac telemetry in any of our rooms. 2 have negative airflow isolation, and all of our rooms have oxygen and suction setup. All of the rooms flex to meet our needs, so we're able to support both overnight and outpatient visits. We support only adult studies, so they have to be age 18 or above. And we're open 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday. We have in the past had limited weekend scheduling, but right now we are holding off on that until we're back up to full strength with our staff. Here's a couple shots of our lab. So we have a sample processing lab on site. It is non-diagnostic. We don't do any resulting or analysis. It needs to be simple processing and short-term storage. We do not do shipping. We rely on our study teams to do that. We have a lab refrigerator, a -20 freezer, a -80 freezer. They're all on the Primex temperature monitoring system, so I will get a page at 2 a.m. if one of them is dropping. It is secured via a badge access only, limited to our CRU staff. And as mentioned before, we have 2 dedicated lab specialists, and the nurses are cross-trained in here. We do have a double check process for lab setups for upcoming visits, and we do our best to resolve any discrepancies in advance of the visit. And we also have a system that to track delivery of kits and sample storage and pickup. I didn't want to, we didn't want to go through this presentation without mentioning East Park, because I know this is burning on everyone's mind. I know there's been a lot of rumors out there, so we wanted to dispel those. So there will be an East Park Medical Center Clinical Research Unit opening in November of 2024. It will be a dedicated research unit, but it is in addition to our UHCRU we have here. So it is on the east side. You've probably seen the structure going up over by the East Madison Hospital, almost said American Center. That unit, we already have the floor plan set up. It's got 6 private rooms with beds and 8 treatment bays, which will have chairs. It will only be able to support outpatient visits because they do have limited hours like a clinic. It will also be limited to adult participants like we do here, and it will be open Monday through Friday. Now, please don't quote me on the hours because this could be a moving target, but at this point, we believe it'll be 8A to 8P with the potential for some limited Saturday hours. But again, this opens in November of next year. There's much work being done behind the scenes to do this planning, and it is in addition to our current CRU. So here's some stats for those who are interested. So this is current. We have 116 active or open studies on the CRU, and we have 68 more that are in some stage of workup. Whether the consult was just submitted or all we're waiting on is SMPH sign-off. It's in some various stage. So 184 protocols in total that we're managing. We do support both investigator-initiated and industry-sponsored research studies, and here's kind of a breakdown of those studies. So we have 58 that are non-industry, 6 that are a mix of research and routine care, so some of the billing goes to insurance, and then 119 that are industry-initiated and funded studies. We do support studies in all phases of research, including first in humans, so phase 1 studies. So phase 1 and 2, we have 85 studies, so a pretty big chunk of what we do. But there are quite a even mix here. I did go to do a pie chart and it was like, oh, it's almost even between the 1, 2, 3, 4, or unspecified, so. And then here's the various departments that use CRU services. This is for the studies that we have, not specific to the visits, and it is not all inclusive. I did have to bucket a bunch under other. In all, there's about 30 departments that use CRU. As you can see, our biggest user as far as the number of studies we have are hematology, oncology, and in second place, well, the other doesn't really count because it's a whole bunch of 1 or 2 studies, but it would be geriatrics or the Alzheimer's research group. And then just to give you a sense of the type of participants we're seeing here, this is a list of the most common diagnoses that we see. So Alzheimer's, mild cognitive impairment, and the hem-onc is really our top ones. There are a number of diagnoses, though, that fall under that second to last bullet, that research study participant, or the Z00.6, which some people will refer to as a healthy volunteer. Not exactly true, because it also includes a number of participants who are on a stigmatizing study. And so we don't list their actual or potential diagnosis in the medical record or in our tracking. And then here's our volume. So this goes back to 2017. As you'll see, our overnight days have definitely gone down over time. We got hit pretty hard with COVID. And our outpatient visits have, you know, we did a little bit of dip during COVID, which is what those red stars are, but for the most part, those have been pretty consistent. I can tell you, though, that the complexity of studies and visits has definitely been increasing over time. So even though our numbers haven't changed a whole lot, the complexity or intensity of those visits have. Just a side note that our trials, we do have observational and therapeutic trials that come to us. Really, it's it includes a lot of studies where the team doesn't have space to conduct the study activities elsewhere. So they are coming to the CRU for that. So it may not always be a study that requires intense PKs or a treatment. The types of treatments we're doing include like biotherapy, chemotherapy, pharmacologics, hormonal. As you saw in the previous slide, the areas of practice include like hem-onc, allergy, neurology, psych, metabolic, cardiology. And really the participant visits can range from anything from a simple blood draw to multiple IV infusions that can last several hours with frequent blood sampling, monitoring, or even an overnight stay. So a lot of blood draws on the unit, IV insertion, investigational product administration, vaccines, and a number of bedside procedures as well, such as muscle biopsies and lumbar punctures. So what is the benefit of conducting studies on CRU? We are a dedicated research unit with staff who are trained in clinical research. Again, this is an area that's designed to provide PIs with the resources and conditions necessary to conduct their trials. All of our staff are trained in human subjects and good clinical practice. We have all nurses in patient care. All of our nurses are trained not only in patient participant safety, but also fidelity to the research protocol. And we do have that research sample processing lab on site, which is very helpful, as many teams I know do not have access to such a thing. Tam.
I'm going to talk a little bit now about elaborating on the benefit of conducting studies on the CRU. The people are really important. We're dedicated to clinical research. We are this bridge between what is clinical and what is research. And we wanted to share the definition of clinical research nursing. I'm not going to read it to you. Everybody can read the screen. In 2016, clinical research nursing was accepted as a specialty practice by the American Nurses Association. And with that, we have a scope and standards of practice specific to the role of clinical research nursing. Tammy mentioned that we have a unit-specific orientation, and during a nurse's orientation on the CRU, this scope and standard of practice is a very big part of that orientation, because clinical research is very different from standard of care that nurses are often taught in nursing schools or familiar with from their clinical rotations. We can go to the next slide. So more about the value of the clinical research nurse. We need to be carrying out these protocol activities correctly. Being a dedicated unit allows us to have the time and the staff to do that. We all know the landscape of healthcare right now is busy, sometimes chaotic. And if you were to go to a standard inpatient unit or even a clinic and say, hey, we need this blood drawn, at 10:10, they would likely look at you like you had two heads and might even say, you'll get the blood draw when we're able to get the blood draw, because we've got 45 other things ahead of that blood draw. Being a dedicated unit allows us to focus on the patient as well as the protocol. When Tammy and I are interviewing or talking to people about, the nurse-patient ratio, we'll often get a question of, what's the patient to nurse ratio? And we'll say we can't really answer that because not only do you have your patient participant, but you have the protocol. So it's almost like you have two in one. You might have a very easy, quote unquote, healthy volunteer participant, but the study activities might be such that there need to be two nurses in the room during an 8-hour visit. Our nurses, as Tammy said, are trained in human subjects and good clinical practice. They're really focusing on patient safety and following the direction of the protocol. Of note, many of the study coordinators that we work with are not licensed, and some don't have a medical background, and that's really where the value of the clinical research nurse is seen as well. We're able to provide the standard of care basics that a patient should receive. Participants in research are not less than just because they're here for a study, and we also follow the protocol. Next slide. And that protocol, we're all very familiar with the research protocol, and we all know that it's much more than just the protocol. There is the lab manual, procedure manual, investigator brochure, documents upon documents that when put together are pieces of this puzzle that show us what we're trying to do, show us all of the things that need to happen as we go to operationalize this protocol in a setting with real people, real patients, real delays, weather issues, all of those things. And that's one of the value that our bedside direct care nurses, as well as our protocol team, brings to the table, is their problem solving, and they're working with the study team and other interdisciplinary collaborators to figure out how we're going to make this happen when sometimes it's not clear in a protocol or all of the other manuals. And when we follow all of these documents, when we use our critical thinking and our nursing judgment and our research practice, we're able to adhere to this protocol, provide safe patient care, and reliable data. And together, that's what our main goal is in this research enterprise. So I want to talk next a little bit about some study team responsibilities, not versus CRU responsibilities, but again, this is a collaborative effort. And it's not just that the study team sends us the protocol and says, here you go. We're working very closely together to make sure that the activities of the protocol are carried out correctly and that our patient participants are safe. So study team responsibilities include facilitating implementation of the study on the CRU. You know, that is just a few words, but that is a huge challenge. There are a lot of pieces to those study implementation. The study coordinator is going to coordinate study activities. They're going to consent and coordinate the visits. The nurses on the CRU do not obtain informed consent. We're always making sure that the participant still wants to participate in the study. And if there are ever any red flags, you know, we would contact the study team and we would say, hey, you know, we've got an issue here. Maybe we would call our medical director and say, this patient doesn't really want to participate in this protocol anymore. I've had to call the patient's physician and have this discussion because research is voluntary. And there are times when people don't want to participate in the protocol anymore. So while we're a part of the ongoing informed consent process, we do not obtain initial informed consent. The study team is also responsible for regulatory, such as IRB-related items, submission to the IRB, submission of amendments or documents. The CRU is going to review those and use those documents or those approvals as we're working through the process, but we don't submit to the IRB. We don't make changes to a protocol. The study team is also going to be guiding or working with provider and other study coordinators for the HealthLink workflows related to the requirements of carrying out visits on the clinical research unit. Because the nurses and the staff of the clinical research unit are not delegates of any protocol, we require orders to carry out the activities of the protocol, the treatments that we're administering, et cetera. And so there is specific research workflows related to signing orders, the development of these orders, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and the coordinator HealthLink workflows as well. One of the very important things to keep in mind is that when administering some of these agents, some that are first in human, it's essential that we have a provider available should something go wrong. And the coordinator is who, or the study team is who we're going to go to say, okay, who's available on this day? You know, there are times when we're the first location nationally or globally giving an agent, and research is the unknown. And so we want to be prepared. Part of the study team's responsibility is to make sure that there is a provider available on those treatment or procedure days. We look to the study team to communicate study-related information with the CRU, new study documents, amendments, study team changes. As I said, we don't submit to the IRB. We're not carbon copied on approvals from IRBs. So if the study team gets an approval from an outside IRB that says your protocol is approved, if the CRU doesn't get that information from the study team, we might not get that information and run the risk of operating under a protocol that is not approved. The point here, after having said all of that, the point is that the CRU staff do not function as study coordinators. The study team supplies the study coordinators. The CRU team, whether it's the protocol team, the direct care nurses, or anybody else on the CRU staff, is working in conjunction with the study team to carry out the activities of that protocol and care for those patient participants. This is a great slide. It tells about the process, the overview of the CRU, and there are some additional steps that a study will have to go through if they're coming to the CRU versus just carrying out a visit in clinic with a research coordinator or potentially clinic staff. So new studies come to the CRU by the way of a CRU consult, which is a REDCap form, and that is accessed through the ICTR website. The consult is the process that we use to review the proposed CRU protocol activities, and it's the first step in determining feasibility for carrying out the study on the CRU. And we use this to begin planning for implementation, operationalization, and management of these CRU visits. The CRU is considered a medical unit. There are certain things that we just cannot do on the CRU. So if a protocol comes through the consult process asking for something that's just not going to be able to be supported by the CRU, we would let the study team know that in advance, and then maybe give direction of, hey, this might be the inpatient unit you need to contact. So a protocol team lead would be assigned to the protocol. They would do a review of the activities and the patient population in order to determine CRU feasibility. Danielle Gale is our protocol manager. Her support is critical in providing clarification for study teams on the CRU procedures and activities that might impact their budgets. She gets many questions about the CRU charges and approves the ancillary service report once they are submitted by the study team. She's reviewing them. She's not generating them. She also develops a study-specific charge slip or billing slip that's used internally by the CRU nursing staff, and that is to support consistency in billing for study visits once the study's up and running. The next step in the process is for a study team to submit a formal application to the CRU for their study. This triggers review of the study by a protocol implementation review committee, or PIR. And this committee includes the medical director, associate director, nurse manager, CNS, protocol team leads, nursing, protocol manager, pharmaceutical research center. We have contacts in lab if there should be a specific lab issue. The role of the PIR is to review the applications requesting the CRU support to formally determine feasibility once approved. And then a notice of award is issued to the study team. Most often, if there is a red flag that we are not able to support this study, it comes long before the PIR meeting. And the PIR meeting is a way for us to share with all of our collaborators, medical director, the studies that are coming through. Once approved by the PIR, the CRU protocol team lead is going to continue to work up the study for the CRU, creating the CRU study-specific documents, working on workflows, ensuring patient safety, and that adherence to the protocol. The study, after a lot of back and forth, is opened on the CRU once orders are approved, documents are reviewed, SMPH sign-off is complete in Encore. I would like to make a note that CRU and Encore are separate entities. Encore is required for CRU, for studies that are carried out on the CRU, but it's not a program that CRU does, or it's not work that CRU does for the study team. It's kind of in parallel to a CRU application or consult request. All right, let's get into the CRU documents and processes. The CRU develops study-specific documents and standardized processes in order to help ensure all of the things that we've been talking about and all of the things that are really important to those of us in research. Patient safety. We have got to keep our patient participants safe. We've got to follow the protocol because we know that if we're not doing things correctly, when the data is analyzed, it's not going to make sense. We might be making decisions on false information. We really pride ourselves on accurate data collection and on accurate sample collection, processing, and storage. It's really easy to keep the patient who is right in front of you in mind, keeping them safe. But those samples that we collect are a rich source of data, and those are analyzed to be yet another piece of the research puzzle. So we're very conscientious about the importance of collecting that data accurately, including processing and storage. So some of the documents that we work with on the CRU, next slide, please, include the provider orders. And as I said, we're not delegates of the protocol. So the orders are the way that the nurse at the bedside, the direct care nurse, knows what to do, that along with the CRU flow sheet. The physician orders are required to legally delegate activities within the scope of nursing practice to the CRU nurse, just like an order in any healthcare setting would be, and to ensure a safe process for communicating directives for patient care and research activities. The orders are study and visit specific. They're based on the protocol, the pharmacy brochure, the lab manuals, correspondence with study teams, because you know your lab manual doesn't match your protocol, doesn't match the investigator brochure, doesn't match something else. There's always a discrepancy. And we want to clear up those discrepancies before we open the study, because we don't want questions the day the patient participant is here. We don't want to rush through things because that's when mistakes are made. And these patients have given their time to us, and we want to honor that, and we want to do right by them. At the end of the provider order process, they are reviewed by the PI or provider, because sometimes a PI is a PhD. And in those cases, they need to be associated with a medical provider in order to sign those orders and verify that the order is correct. The study team will approve the orders, PRC Pharmacy will approve them, and then the CRU protocol team lead is also part of that approval process. CRU flow sheet. Nobody would ever let us put all the information into the orders that needs to go into the orders to make sure that things are carried out correctly. And earlier in this presentation, Tammy showed that we have a lot of studies that we're working up. We have 15 nurses on the unit, and any particular day, any nurse could get any study. They do not read the protocol front to back, and even if they did, they'd never be able to remember all of the nuances of the protocol. So the CRU protocol team lead is going to create a CRU flow sheet. It's a paper document. It serves as a roadmap for the bedside nurse. It is study and visit specific, and it guides staff of the protocol activities, including this precise data collection. What time are my vitals? What time is my blood draw? Okay, what do I do with that blood draw? Because even if I draw my blood at the appropriate time, if it's not processed correctly, it might be not able to be used. The CRU flow sheet is going to be used as a source document for your study. And unless it's a stigmatizing study, these documents are scanned into HealthLink. All right, lab processing grid. Nobody likes the lab processing grid, but it's really essential to what we do. So teasing out what happens to those samples is part of what the CRU protocol team lead is going to do. Again, it's very study specific. It's developed from the lab manual, the protocol, looking at the actual research kits and any other materials that might be related to research sample collection. They provide the instructions for CRU staff to collect, process, and store. As Tammy said earlier, we do have a lab processing staff, but they're not here 24/7. So the nurses need to be cross-trained to step in to process any samples that might happen after hours. And they follow the lab processing grids by way of the flow sheet in order to do that. The CRU protocol team lead, along with the CRU lab specialist, is going to develop the lab processing grid, and it gets sent to the study team. And if there's an appropriate lab person on the study team, to that person to be reviewed and approved. So again, a really collaborative effort goes into the creation and the review and approval of all of these documents. The CRU billing slip is an internal document developed and used by the CRU. It is used by staff to ensure that there is standardized charge entry. And this comes out of the consult meeting, the ancillary reviews back and forth with the study team. So on cycle 1, day 1 of study XYZ, these charges are going to be billed. Unless, of course, somebody has a reaction and now we have to do 15 other things. But it's a way to standardize this charge entry. Again, like everything else, study and visit specific. The CRU reservation form is the process that closes the book on study implementation. Once all of the documents, the orders, the processes have been worked out, SMPH sign-off is complete. The CRU is going to release the CRU reservation form. These are required to schedule overnight and outpatient visits on the CRU. Again, study and visit specific. And it covers the study visits that were approved back when the study applied for CRU approval. And there's this award letter that goes out, and it says CRU has approved visits 4, 5, and 6 to be carried out on the CRU. So if you have a reservation form and this is visit 1 and you write in visit 1, we're going to call you and we're going to say, wait a minute, we didn't expect this study to be coming to the CRU. Did something change? So your reservation form, along with your flow sheet, along with the orders, really are several pieces of the puzzle to what's happening on the CRU. And included on these reservation forms are specific communication. Perhaps we need to be put in a negative airflow room. Perhaps we need to have an ADA accessible room. Those specific nuances will be listed on the reservation form as well. One of the things that we've just started to put on the reservation forms, so it may not be on older reservation forms, is the length of stay for particular visits. And the way this would be really useful for the study team is when you're consenting a patient or talking to a patient about visit 5 that's going to be carried out on the CRU, and there's a length of stay of 360 minutes, that's information that can be passed on to the participant. Because if you have a study visit that has a 6-hour post-dose blood draw, it's not a 6-hour visit. There are many things that are happening before we even give the study drug. And there's nothing worse than going into the patient room. We write out on the whiteboard and say, here's what's going to happen for today. You know, you will probably get discharged here from about 6 o'clock tonight. And the patient says, well, wait a minute, I need to let my dog out. I didn't know I was going to be here till 6 o'clock tonight. So that's another tool that the study team can use to kind of gauge how long these visits are. All right, Tammy, back to you for UW Health ECGs.
Yeah, so this is not necessarily specific to CRU per se, but I wanted to take this opportunity for a little public service announcement about UW Health ECGs. This is a screenshot of the webpage on UConnect. I think it's linked through the Research and Health Link webpage, but cardiology clinic at UW Health is able to support all single outpatient ECGs, but only if they require less than 5 minutes of rest. If they require a longer rest period by the study protocol prior to taking the ECG, or if the protocol requires multiple ECGs, such as duplicate or triplicate, 2 minutes apart, 5 minutes apart, whatever it is, they don't have the chair time available. They have one room at UW Hospital where they are running ECGs throughout the day for all outpatients, and they try to get through 60 of those a day. And if they get a study-specific ECG need that requires a longer rest time or multiple, they can't get through the volume they need to get through, and it really clogs them up. So we collaborated with them a number of years ago to put a process in place where CRU is used, basically our space is used to be able to carry out these ECGs that have more requirements than the cardiology clinic is able to support. So any study that requires multiple ECGs or more than 5 minutes of rest before the ECG is obtained, please see this page on UConnect for instructions. We support these studies. The visit charges are waived. You still get the usual professional fees or the actual procedure fee for the ECG, but essentially, you still need to schedule the visit with the CRU so that we know to expect them. The nurse, there'll still be a need for an order for the tech to do the EKG. The CRU nurse will release that order and kind of coordinate that to get the ECG tech here to do that for the study. I will say, however, if your study does require a specific time point at when that ECG needs to be obtained, such as 1 hour post a dose, or if there's multiple time points in a day that require a UW Health ECG, then really CRU nursing services are needed, and you need to submit a CRU consult request and do it as an actual CRU visit and not just a use of our room. So again, there's instructions on UConnect that include the workflow, how to set this up in Encore, the generic reservation form you would use, and very specific ordering instructions for how to make this happen for the actual visit. So we wanted to wrap up with some CRU-related resources for you. First is the ICTR webpage, which I'm embarrassed to say I need to update. We need to update, but it still has some very valuable resources available to you as a study team considering use of the CRU. So there is the button there on the bottom left to request a CRU consult that will trigger the REDCap form. There is a very good budgeting toolkit in here. There's also a detailed document on guidance for study implementation that provides not only an explanation of the different steps, but also the responsibilities between the study team and the CRU staff in all of those documents and processes that Tam talked about, from the orders to the flow sheets to the lab grid, developing your budget, et cetera, and what the study team does and what the CRU does. So very helpful resource for you. And then there's also a CRU process overview or on the ICTR webpage. And then, of course, we can't not say anything about the Research and Health Link webpage on UConnect. So this is an extremely rich resource for study personnel conducting research at UW Health. I manipulated the screen quite a bit and only included the bullets that are really pertinent to a study on the CRU. There are many more that are pertinent, don't get me wrong, but these are the ones that come up the most for us. But it's got, everything from your overall use of HealthLink, how to write a note. There's the guideline for what needs to be documented in the medical record, what it means to be a stigmatizing study and what that process is. If you have an overnight stay, the instructions are here for how to place that additional reservation to reserve the bed, instructions on how to enter orders, get them signed, etc. So just really rich resource, including the workflow for the UW Health ECGs that I just went over. And that's our team. It's kind of an old picture, but it's still a great picture. So we thank you for joining us and hearing a little bit about us, and hopefully we answered some good questions you might have had.